Hi, Courtney and I are here today and we're going to talk about Schreiner jewelry. This is a little bit different than we usually have done. We're going to cover some of the basics, but this is really about identifying the attributes of unsigned Schreiner jewelry. And one of the reasons that I want to do this right now is because Schreiner, there's a book that came out, we'll talk about that. And the prices of Schreiner have really skyrocketed, and there is a lot of people out there who are selling Schreiner pieces for very, very high prices. And I just want to educate you about what to look for in a piece that's unsigned. I'm going to start off with a little bit of background on Schreiner jewelry, like I always do, the company. Heinrich Schreiner, or Henry, came from Bavaria to the U.S. in the 1925, and he was a blacksmith. But he came over to the U.S. and in around the 1940s, he started creating jewelry designs for coats and for ready-to-wear dresses. It was very successful, but it wasn't available to everybody because not everybody could afford to get a coat with a brooch or belt or whatever. But anyway, in the 1950s, his daughter Terry and her husband joined the company, and that's really, it was the heyday of Schreiner, and it are the pieces that we see today. They're very colorful. We're going to talk a lot about how they're made, but that's a little bit about the history of the company. All right, there's signed Schreiner and there is unsigned, and I just want to show you, it's kind of simple. It's more simple than some of the other designers that we've talked about before, because there's really only 3 possible signatures. And if you look right here, you can see there's one that says Schreiner, New York, and then there's one that's on a oval cartouche and it just says Schreiner. And then lastly, there's one that's Schreiner Jewelry, and it's NYC. I've never seen this. No, that doesn't, it's out there, but I haven't seen any. So the 2 that you're really going to see most often is Schreiner, New York, and Schreiner. And sometimes you have to really look for it. Now I know these aren't super clear, but it's really hard to zoom in on the actual signatures. So as always, we're going to have all of this in the back of this video, so that you can take a closer look at it yourself. So you're out and about and you find a piece that you like, but it isn't a signed Schreiner, and that's what you're looking for. So we're going to talk now about the attributes of Schreiner jewelry and what specific things to look for. And the hard part about this is that sometimes these things are there, but not always. And some of them are there, but not all of them are there. So it's a little bit complicated. So let's go through it and take a look at what some of the attributes are. Here's a piece of Schreiner. You look for unusual color combination, unusual stones. Pink, purple, fuchsia. I mean, this is just an example. There's beautiful, beautiful color combinations. I've had yellow and pink together, and you find patriotic ones of red, white, and blue, but it's unusual color combinations and really striking. I'm going to flip this over for a second because you know that you can almost always tell more information from the back of a piece than you can from the front. The one thing I want you to notice, though, is the way these prongs are. These are called dog tooth settings, and Schreiner pieces will often use these very detailed prongs. So that's another one. All right, so let's flip this over. And you can see it's a very unusual setting. These are called crimped or crinkled or cupcake settings. So they're not smooth like so many others that you'll see. These are these crinkled. Now that alone, I've seen a lot of people who have those listed as Schreiner if it's just got that, and that's not the case. Others use these. I've seen them in other designers myself. But in a Schreiner, you will see the crimp. You really have to look for a combination of things. Also look at the way the pin is attached to the brooch. You're not seeing any bar across here. It's actually part of the brooch. And that's true of Schreiner as well. I don't think I've ever seen one that was like a bar that was attached with epoxy or glue. So those are several from this brooch. With this piece, what I'm showing you is what's called inverted rhinestones. And in many Schreiner pieces, they actually set the rhinestones upside down. And so what you'll see on this piece is little points because the stones are set upside down. So those are called inverted stones, and it's one of the main things to look for in Schreiner. Do all Schreiner have that? No, but many do. So inverted stones. What you'll often see in the brooches is what's called a domed brooch. And as you can see with these three examples, they're all arched. They don't lay flat. There's a dome to them. And when you see these, if you turn it over, the construction on the domed often uses this hook and eye to connect the two layers of the brooch. And that's definitely, an attribute of Schreiner. Okay, what you're seeing here are pieces that I know are all Schreiner from my own collection. Now, there isn't a lot here, and one of the reasons is because Schreiner is so popular right now that I have, bought and sold many, many pieces. But this set, even though you don't see the combination of colors, to find a set like that is really unusual, but that is a signed Schreiner piece. All of these are signed Schreiner except this bracelet right here. And the reason that I know that piece is Schreiner, and I was really, excited to be able to acquire that piece, is because I found it in this book. So this is one of the reasons that Schreiner has become so popular lately. Carol Tannenbaum and Eve Townsend wrote this book, Schreiner, Masters of 20th Century Costume Jewelry, and it really is an incredible book. And you'll see just so many examples of Schreiner in this book. But on this page, I read this book before I found the bracelet, but it says it's a very rare piece, and you can see, as you look very closely, this is an unsigned piece as well, but if you look closely, it's got these Asher cut rhinestones, which is an unusual cut for rhinestones, and I found a piece that had exactly the same construction, a little bit different color scheme, which you'll see, but clearly the same bracelet from, looking at the ends and the back and everything about it was the same as this book piece. Okay, we're going to talk about some of the designs of Schreiner outside what I've already showed you from my very limited collection. But you're looking at the ruffled brooch, and this is probably the most well-known, most highly coveted pieces of Schreiner. And you can see the unique stones that are surrounding this center cabochon. My understanding is that these were produced exclusively for Schreiner for a certain period of time. But there's variations of this where you'll see the cabochon in the middle and then different shaped stones, but they're not Schreiner. These are, look at the shape closely. They're very thin and long and wider at the bottom than they are, or wider at the top than they are at the bottom. And I want to show you this black piece that I have just as an example. Those stones are similar, but they're not the same. So a slight variation. They're not marquee shaped. They're this specifically shaped stone, and that makes a ruffled brooch. Now, the prices of these are commensurate with the desire from collectors. So these are not inexpensive pieces to acquire, but You never know when you're out there shopping in one of the flea markets, you might come across something that looks like this, and now you'll have some information about what it might be. The other areas that Schreiner did, and I'll just go through these real quickly, are strawberries, poodles, butterflies, insects, turtles. You see a large amount of flowers, and it's usually a single flower with a long stem and glass leaves, and they're really pretty. They're really pretty, and they're more reasonable to acquire. And then these gorgeous color combinations that we saw in the dome brooches, big bib necklaces, and chunky bracelets like the ones that I showed you. All right, what you're looking at right here are some examples of brooches that you might look at and say, I wonder if these are Schreiner. You know, they're domed. They have some of these nice combination of stones. They may even be inverted stones, but for multiple reasons, these pieces are not Schreiner. And here's an example. I talked earlier about the pin. This pin is not the same construction. And although this is a domed piece, pretty highly domed piece, if you turn it over, it doesn't have that hook and eye construction that you'd normally see on a Schreiner. Another piece here. This is an example of one that has a lot of similar construction on the back. The one thing that I forgot to mention in the other, some of the brooches have a hook so you can wear the brooches as a pendant on a necklace. And this piece has that, and it has that round construction, and the pin is part of the construction. But you'll see there's a little plaque there, and what it says is Austria. And a lot of the made in Austria or Austrian brooches have a lot of the attributes of Schreiner, but they're clearly not Schreiner. Here you have a unique color combination of things, and some of this I've got the jury's still out on a few of them, but the construction, and this one even has some of the crimped cupcake setting we talked about, and some of the open back stones that you'll see. But I look at the earrings and it doesn't have the right kind. This jury's still out on this set. So even I, having looked at a lot of pieces in time, still have, some difficulty in saying, is this or isn't? But I think I checked with some experts on this one, and it's not. This one we talked about when we talked about the ruffled pieces, because although it has these unusual shaped stones, they're not quite the same shape as those ruffled. These are a little heavier than that. And the domed or the two-tier construction does not have the construction that the Schreiner has. So it's not an easy thing, but I wanted to give you like a little bit, especially based on this book, of what some of the attributes are of Schreiner, and wish you luck in finding some out there. Thanks for joining Courtney and I. I hope that you learned something about Schreiner jewelry. It really is just beautiful pieces. And Courtney and I were talking in between clips here, and it is the higher end of the costume jewelry line. It's up there, near the top. We've talked a lot of, about Weiss and Kramer and some of the lower end Trifari, and those are very accessible and inexpensive. But Schreiner jewelry is very highly coveted. It's very high quality, and it's kind of a different echelon for costume jewelry. But I want you to hold on for a few seconds and watch the end of the video, because what we have in here is some good references for books and for the web. And most importantly is this page that you'll see towards the end. And what this is a list of the attributes of Schreiner jewelry, some of which we've talked about, and I've tried to show you some examples. But it is a list that you should, if you pay attention to anything, this is the list. It comes from Carol Tannenbaum and Eve Townsend's Schreiner book, and it's a list here for you for your reference on all of the attributes of Schreiner jewelry. Thanks so much for joining. I hope that you subscribe to my YouTube channel so you can get updates. I think the next one we're probably going to talk about check jewelry, which is a big area. I've got a lot of examples, so it'll be fun. Also, my shop on Ruby Lane, Chapel Hill Vintage Jewels, and my Facebook page, same name. So thanks very much for joining.